Welcome to the fifth Friday. Every 3 months we have a fifth Friday. On those Fridays, inshallah ta'ala, we are going to have a special. Um, and tonight's special is going to be virtual. And I have with me a distinguished guest joining us all the way from California, uh, Imam Mustafa Umar. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless him. Are you with us, Sheikh Mustafa?
I am here.
Can you hear me?
Alhamdulillah.
So there you go. MashaAllah. Beautiful. So Sheikh Mustafa Hafidhullah is the director of education at the Islamic Institute of Orange County, my old masjid. And he's also the founder of CIU, California Islamic University. And he also sits on the Fiqh Council of North America, the same Fiqh Council that Dr. Yasser Qadi and Imam Suhaib Webb and Dr. Muzammil Siddiqui and others, very distinguished scholars and experts, sit on. So he's a member of that Fiqh Council. Tonight we have you in your capacity as a member of that Fiqh Council, Sheikh Mustafa. Welcome. Welcome to the city of Memphis.
MashaAllah. Jazakumullah khairan. Barakallah
Wow, I
feekum.
love this virtual world. It looks like we're sitting next to each other right now.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah. Except you're a little bigger than your real size. Okay, Sheikh Mustafa, tonight's conversation is going to be about a topic that you've done extensive research on, right? Which is, this is a conversation about Halloween.
Yeah.
So, inshallah ta'ala, so welcome to the program. And what would you like to tell us about your journey with Halloween, researching this topic? My understanding is that later tonight you're going to also be addressing this issue.
Correct. Yes.
Yes.
In our own masjid as well. Yes. Alhamdulillah. I mean, there's a lot to say. One of the things I always like to begin with is Halloween is a very difficult holiday for Muslims, especially for Muslim parents, because one of the things that happens is, every year, I mean, Halloween is the second largest holiday after Christmas in the United States. I mean, it's so large that 1/4 of all candy that is sold due to Halloween throughout the entire year. So it's a big festival, and what happens is that Americans like celebrating things, because America is a consumerist culture. It's capitalism. People are trying to sell their products. Companies are trying to establish some type of aura around their work atmosphere or whatever. And Muslims are thrown into this 1 month long preparation for this 1 day festival, and it's very challenging. Muslims have to make a decision. Are they going to conform and they're going to just follow what every American is doing, what everyone else around you is doing, or are they going to resist and say, you know what? No, we don't agree with this, for Islamic reasons, or for psychological reasons, or it's just not worth our
Or for
time,
health reasons.
or for health reasons,
Yeah.
for wasting time reasons. We have better stuff to do. So there's so many reasons why Muslims, many different angles we need to look at this issue. And what makes it more challenging is that there are some aspects of Halloween which are kosher, as you like to say. They're okay. Like, some people say, oh well, we're not supposed to dress up in any costume at all, like throughout the entire year. So then they start thinking, is it because if you dress up like a costume, you're deceiving somebody else? Is that what it is? And they start to come up with all sorts of weird rationalizations. The reality is, dressing up in a costume like a normal costume, of if you dress up like an imam, let's say, for example, yeah, dress up like
It's our favorite holiday, right? When it
which
comes to
one?
dressing up for us. You remember that
Oh, for
incident
us.
when I was wearing a hoodie, like a Moroccan hoodie,
Oh yeah,
and someone in California, I don't know what that person was really smoking, but he said, "I like your costume, dude." And I'm like,
yeah.
this is not a costume. This is my everyday dress. Like, what is it? Are
Exactly.
you a Jedi master? Remember? Yeah.
Exactly. Or nowadays people are watching these Turkish shows, Ertugrul and Bayetaht, and now Barbaroslar.
Oh,
Dre-
wow.
Yeah, like
Creating.
imagine dressing up like one of those characters, right? And
Yeah.
there was nothing intrinsically wrong like with that, right? If you're dressing up like some important figure in the past or something like that, so dressing up is not intrinsically problematic. Eating candy a little bit, right, is not intrinsically problematic. There's not something wrong with everyone eats a little bit candy nowadays, right? Carving an apple or a pumpkin or a pomegranate or any fruit that you pick, carving something like that, there's nothing intrinsically wrong with any of these actions. So that aspect of Halloween is not intrinsic, it's not wrong by its nature. But then there's this other aspect of Halloween that people don't really pay so much attention to. It's like they could have dressed up like so many different things. They don't dress up like comic characters and cartoons and stuff. There's always an aspect of Halloween that involves witches, that involves black magic, that involves evil, gore, torture, blood, spiders, vampires, demons,
Skeletons.
zombies, you
Yeah,
know,
zombies. Yeah.
just connection with all of these things. People like some neighbors of mine that I know, they have like fake coffins on their lawn, arms sticking out, just gruesome scenes, right? And what Muslims need to do is they need to stop and ask, say, why? Like, where did this come from? Why this instead of something else? There could have been a million other options. There could have been 1,000 other options. Why this specific thing? Right? Like when it comes to Easter, there's Easter eggs and there's a bunny and all of that stuff, coloring the eggs. Why that? Why an Easter, why a bunny? Why not
That was
a
going to be
llama?
my next question, but let me ask you, is this a very important question that people need to ask themselves? Where did this come from? Because some people say, why do we have to really obsess about the origin of everything? Why can't we just like accept things as they have evolved? It's just an event for the kids to have fun. So
Yeah.
is asking this question, with regards to the origin of anything, is that an
Yeah.
important question for an intelligent, wise Muslim to ask?
This is the core and the foundation of Islam. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions this again and again in the Quran. Whenever the prophets came and they talked about Tawheed and they said, don't worship these idols, don't worship these statues, only worship Allah. What was the first response of most of the idol worshipping people? But this is what our parents used to do. This is what our forefathers and our ancestors used to do. And the response back to them was, even if they were doing something wrong, you're going to simply accept the tradition, you're going to accept the culture, you're going to justify an action that you're doing just because people in the past used to do it. That's what's called like blind imitation of culture. And actually Islam tells us when something contradicts the principles of Islam or something is problematic, we're supposed to question that. Right? So some people, they come along and they make this, they say, well, if you study fiqh, you told me to represent the fiqh council here, so I'm going to get a little bit fiqhi, like if you study al-qawaid al-fiqhiyya, right? You study these principles of maxims in Islamic law. One of them is al-'ada muhakkama, that, culture or custom is taken into consideration in Islamic law. Some people say, but that's the culture, so that's the custom, so what's wrong? We should, when in Rome, do like the Romans. Okay, so when in America, do like the Americans. And the problem is, you know what? If we're talking about eating burgers, we're talking about, dressing up in like a suit and tie, which you do a fantastic job of, mashallah. There's nothing wrong with that because there's nothing intrinsically wrong with those things. There's nothing intrinsically problematic with those things. I know some people, they say, oh, the ties, the way you wrap it and it's a cross and the Christianity, that's not even true at all. It's a false origin. If it was, maybe it might be an issue, but it's not. So in Islam, we're supposed to investigate things. We're supposed to ask questions. One of the things that appeals to people about the religion of Islam is it doesn't shut down questions. It doesn't shut down inquiry. And if you ask most people who came in from like a different religion, they came in from like Hinduism or they came in from Catholic or Christianity, they say, you know what? Islam makes sense because it actually tells us to be inquisitive. It tells us to ask questions. It tells us to think critically. And that's like the core and the foundation of Islam. You know, the prophets, before manifesting any miracles, when they were conveying the message of Islam, they would always appeal to the intellects of people. It's not just a leap of faith. It's not just an emotional argument that they were doing. So
So
this
I will
idea
tell you,
of
Sheikh,
getting...
we're ready to hear the origin of it. So what is the origin of it? This is a question that a lot of people ask.
No,
Where did it come from?
no. There's three main origins. There's three elements that kind of came together, right? So the first part is the oldest part. Is there's this Celtic festival of Samhain. Now it's pronounced Samhain, but it's written Samhain, Samhain. So some people they read it and they're like, oh, Samhain. Actually, the pronunciation, the M is silent, right? This was their language. So these Celtic people, they had this festival, and it's called Samhain, even though it's written Samhain. And until today, they still celebrate it. Wiccans, Satan worshippers, witches, today, even the modern day versions of them, they still celebrate this festival. This is where Halloween originated. So the Celtic people, they lived around modern day Ireland about 2,000 years ago, right? And what they used to do is they used to have this belief that at the end of their year, right, on the night of October 31st and on the day of November 1st, they believe that there's this portal between the world where spirits and evil witches and dead people and all of that, this portal opens and you can cross from that world into this world. So all these spirits are going to start coming, these dead spirits, all the people who've passed away, they're going to start to go through that portal and come back and return back to Earth. So they would start doing all these rituals, believing this superstitious practice. So obviously, as Muslims, we don't believe that. Almost no one really believes that in America anymore. They believe other strange things, but they don't believe stuff like that. So they had priests, and these Celtic priests used to go and light these huge fires, these bonfires. They would make sacrifice to their gods. They had all these religious rituals that were around this day of Samhain that they used to celebrate. Now, this is step number one. Okay, step number one, this is where Halloween is coming from originally. Step number two is the Roman Empire comes and conquers the Celtic territory in the year 43 CE. At that time, the Romans are pagans. They're not Christians yet. So they're pagan people. They come in and they say, hey, there's this Samhain festival going on. People keep celebrating this. They believe that the dead people come into this world and they have all these religious festivals and stuff. But, we have our own gods. We have Roman gods. So what we're going to do is you guys are commemorating the passage of the dead, people who died, they're coming back to this world. Well, we're going to introduce some of our own gods into this festival and mix it together. So one of their gods was Pomona.
The Romans were notorious for that, right? Mixing things
They're
together, creating a new mix.
they're politicians. They're like, hey, we can incorporate our own stuff. We can mix it in, blend it in like a little salad. It's no problem. So one of their gods was called Pomona, kind of like the city of Pomona. This was the goddess of fruit, right? So they had these different gods, and they said, okay, let's mix in some of the festivals that we have for our gods, mix it in with the day of Samhain together. And so they did that, and it kind of became like a blend. So now you have a Celtic pagan blend and a Roman idolatry pagan blend of two festivals together. Now later on, the Roman Empire becomes Christian, right? So Constantine accepts Christianity in the year 313. They have a Council of Nicaea in the year 325, and then they just start spreading Christianity, distorted form from the original message of Prophet Jesus. But they start spreading Christianity throughout the Roman Empire. So now what happens is you have the Catholic Church. Catholic Church is very powerful, and they even though they have an aspect of idolatry when it comes to the Trinity and Jesus, they don't like the idolatry of the Romans. They don't like all these other gods and the Celtic paganism that they had. So what they had in their own church was they had a day which they would celebrate all the Christian martyrs who had been killed. So anyone who gets killed and they're considered to be a holy person, like a priest or a monk or something like that, they're known as a martyr. And what they do is they say we call them a saint, right? So someone who's a saint, somebody who dies in that path, we consider them a martyr. What happened is they had a day called All Martyrs Day. where we commemorate the shuhada. We commemorate the martyrs in the Christian church who were killed. And what happens is All Martyrs Day becomes renamed to All Hallows Day. So hallow means like, subhana, like blessed be these people, right? So it's like blessed be the martyrs who had died. So they call this all the martyrs that had died. We call it All Hallows Day. Let's celebrate and commemorate all of these people that died. So now this All Hallows Day used to be celebrated in May. And this is when the Catholic Church was celebrating it. But what happened was they said, you know what? There's so many people celebrating this Samhain festival still going on. They believe these souls return to the dead and stuff. Let's make a modification in our religion. Forget this day of May celebrating people. Let's shift the All Saints, All Martyrs Day or All Hallows Day. Let's shift it to be exactly on October 31st. So what's going to do is we're going to try to displace this other pagan festival that people are engaging in. So they do that, and people still are not getting rid of it. So they say, let's make one more adjustment. Let's adjust it and say it's not only for martyrs, it's All Souls Day. All people who have died, we're going to commemorate all of them. And now that correlates very similar to what the Celtic and the Celtic people were doing, because they're commemorating the dead because they believe the dead come back to this world. So they said, you know what, if we mix the two together, we can somehow get people to stop doing it. We just got to make some compromises in our religion. It's okay. It doesn't have to be on May. Let's just shift it over to another day, and hopefully, everything will be fine. So what happened was they called it All Souls Day to include all dead people. So the night before that, the night before All Hallows, they called it All Hallows Eve. Like, for example, Christmas, there's Christmas Day, the 25th, Christmas Eve, meaning the night before Christmas. So you got All Hallows Day, the night before is called All Hallows Eve. So what you do is you just change the words around All Hallows Eve and you get Halloween. That's exactly where the wording comes from. So it's this modification from the church of trying to shift their festival over, mix it with the Celtic festival, and then do all of this stuff. So now this becomes celebrated in Europe. Now in America, since we're in America, this is relevant to us, right? You have these settlers come and they supposedly discover America, which is inhabited by millions of Native Americans anyways. And they arrive here, but the difference is many of them are running away from the Catholic Church in Europe. So they're the Puritans, they're Protestants, they don't like the practices of the Catholic Church. So they're not following the Pope anymore. So when they arrive over here, they are completely against the practice of Halloween. They say this is some Catholic thing mixed in with some pagan festivals. We're not doing any of this. This is completely haram. This is a bid'ah. This is an innovation. In America, we Americans, we're not doing this Halloween stuff at all. So they're completely against Halloween in America until the potato famine in 1846. The potato famine in Ireland hits Europe over there, affects a lot of people, and a lot of Irish start to immigrate to America. And these are white, Irish people. And when they immigrate, they bring their Catholic religion and they bring their Halloween festival as well. And now it starts spreading throughout the country. And by the 20th century, what happens is capitalism. People say, hey, this is a fun day. People are enjoying dressing up. They're playing pranks. They're doing all sorts of things.
We can sell
and
stuff.
We can make money off of this, man. Anything, this is an American way, right? Anything you can make money off of, let's do it, right? Let's commercialize this entire thing. So today,
Sheikh, I don't mean to interrupt you, but by the way, it's actually a fun thing, and it's excited many people. And some of these metropolitan areas where you have large Muslim population, right? For instance, Costco was selling ma'mul. Like Eid Mubarak, it was like Eid Ma'mul, you know what I mean? So you're right, you're absolutely right. Anything that sells and that basically acknowledges any group of people, if it sells, why not? Yeah.
Absolutely. Target, Walmart, they're selling Eid decorations, anything that sells, and that's the problem. It's nice for Muslims. It's like, yeah, that's good. That's good when it's that's the problem with hyper-pluralism. Pluralism is fine, but when it becomes moral relativism, you're going to include Satanism in there, right? You have like, oh, you know what? We're going to sell pictures of Shaitan that you can put on your wall. Yeah, that's equal game. We'll sell anything that sells. We don't care if it has any basis whatsoever. So that's kind of the problem with the consumerism. But that's the way America generally works. So today we're talking about $6 billion every year just in the United States only. And whatever happens in the United States,
from sales of what? Candy or costume or
from
both?
from sales of
Of everything.
candy and
Everything
costumes and
related
decorations.
to. Okay. Mm. Wow.
Yeah,
That's a lot of
everything.
money.
And if it's happening here, it's America exports its culture. It's going to happen in other parts of
It
the
is
world,
happening.
including it's happening, and including Muslim parts of the world.
Yeah.
And they're going to do it for two reasons. People are going to import Halloween for two reasons. Number one, because people like to imitate Americans. They like to imitate whatever's happening in America. And number two, they're also thinking, hey, how can we develop our economies? Oh, let's be capitalistic too. Let's just be consumer. Let's sell whatever we can sell and make some money. It's going to be good for our economy. So some of the politicians will be like, yeah, let's do that, no problem. Right? So that's the origins of Halloween. It's something that's really evolved over time, incorporated so many different elements into it. Most of the elements were pagan elements. Some of them were Christian elements. Still, from our perspective, it's still, it's something wrong with that. How the religion has evolved in Christianity as well. So all of this stuff happened. So now that's Halloween in a nutshell. That's Halloween in general. But if you look at the details, right? When you ask people about Halloween, you say, well, what do you think? You say, oh, trick-or-treating, dressing up in costumes, decorating a pumpkin, carving a pumpkin, making a jack-o'-lantern, things like bobbing for apples. Where do all of these things come from? And it's important. So I'll just give you something, just very brief. One of the things that used to happen is that the Celtic people, they believe that these ghosts are coming back into the world on that night. So they used to get scared. So one of the things they would do is they would dress up in costumes because they were scared of these ghosts. So they thought that if you wear a face mask or you wear one of these costumes, you can the ghosts will not recognize them. Like the ghosts are stupid or something like that, right? They're like, oh yeah, you look pretty scary too. We're one of you, you're not a human, so we'll just kind of let you go by. So that was the origin of dressing up in costumes. To prevent ghosts from coming inside their home.
To scare the evil spirits.
Scare the evil spirits, or to normalize so that they wouldn't recognize who you are. So it's like, I'm an evil spirit too. So like, hey, I'm going to dress up like a skeleton costume. Oh, they're going to think, hey, that guy's one of us. We'll just skip him. So that's where the costume thing originated from. And that's why many of the costumes today, they always tend to be pirates, evil people, skull and bones, zombie, all of these things. There's a reason for that. That's where it originally came from, right? So that element remains in there. It's not been purified. Right? People are not dressing up like,
now I'm feeling
sports
bad.
players.
I thought the guy was admiring my dress when he asked me if I'm a Jedi. And I was trying to be humble. I said, no, I'm not a Jedi master. I'm just a student of knowledge.
That's it, Masha. You're a Padawan. So that's the term.
Wow. Now I feel bad. Okay. So he was saying that I was scary, Annie.
Yeah. So, there's that. And then you have trick-or-treating. So what happened with trick-or-treating is that people would leave treats. They would leave like some desserts and stuff like that outside their home because they're scared that these ghosts would come inside their home. So, hey, we can just appease these ghosts, assuming that they eat, they're going to eat food or whatever they're coming around for. So they would leave treats outside, and, the bad ghosts will eat the food and leave. The good ghosts, they believe that their dead family members also come back on this night. So they say, hey, you know what, maybe we're going to be sleeping. What if our dead family member decides to come visit his old home while we're sleeping, and we don't get to see him or something like that? Let's at least leave some food out for him too, so he can eat something, right? So it's superstitious, belief. That's why they used to leave candy out. So when people leave candy outside, this is exactly what they're doing. They're imitating exactly that same mentality of either keeping the ghosts out of their home or feeding their dead ancestors that they think are coming to visit, which is very similar to like Dia de los Muertos in the Latin American tradition. So you got that, and then what happened was the church tried to modify this. The Catholic Church, when it was trying to clean up and do a little bid'ah here and there, and like try and remove some of the bad aspects of Halloween, they said, hey, let's modify it. Like some Muslims have the same mentality. Let's just make a few modifications and then it's going to be okay, right?
Yeah, I
So
was
they
going to
tried
ask you
to.
that question. Sheikh, we need to address that question. I know you have to run, but
Yeah,
if you can, inshallah, give me some time at the end to ask you that question about
I will. I will.
alternatives, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I will. I will. So inshallah, so what they tried to do, I'll summarize it for you. One of the things that they tried to do was the church said, you know what, leaving this for ghosts and stuff, we don't believe in this stuff. So instead what we're going to do is let's make, the church decides what to happen. So they called it, you're going to make these little soul cakes because it's All Souls Day. So they made these little cakes called soul cakes. And what they did was say, people who come to your door, don't give them a soul cake unless they come, they knock on your door and then say, hey, I got these treats for you, but I'm going to give it to you with one condition. The condition is, and usually poor people would come, the condition is you pray for my ancestors. So you make dua for my dead ancestors, and I'm going to give you some candy. I'm going to give you a treat. So like basically you're selling du'as basically. It's like, it's pretty, it's kind of, that's what happened with the church. You go in to confess in front of the Father, forgive me, I've sinned, and you give a donation. You buy, penitence from your sins. So the same concept happened. They would come to make dua for my deceased ancestors, we'll give you something. So that's why people would come and they would, make dua and they would give them a treat. So this is the idea of trick or treating. And then later on, some people said, you know what? Some people say, you're not giving us good candy, man. You're not giving us good soul cakes and all of that stuff. To say, the people who do a good job, we're gonna be happy. If you don't, then we're gonna mess with you, right? So we're gonna come to your house and we're gonna say trick or treat. You either give us a treat or you're gonna get a trick. And a trick in Old English meant we're gonna mess up your house. We're gonna throw eggs at your house. We're gonna steal your horse or do something. We're gonna do something bad to you. So now basically people are being threatened. You better give us something, otherwise we're gonna play a trick on you, right? And this still happens among some people, toilet papering and all that. So you got that. You got the jack-o'-lantern coming from the same idea. It used, instead of a pumpkin, it used to be a turnip. In Ireland, right, the Celtic people, they used to carve this scary face in there to keep the ghosts out of their home from getting in. So now we do a scary face inside of a pumpkin. And many people, they don't understand why they're doing that, what they're doing, right? So bobbing for apples was due to the goddess, fruit, the Pomona goddess and all that stuff. So this is where it comes back down to this concept, right? What are Muslims supposed to do? Knowing the origin, first of all, we're supposed to ask the origin. Knowing the origin of what's going on, right? Understanding what the origin is from a religious perspective. Does it make sense that this is something that we should be partaking in when there's symbolism? The symbolism from the religion remains. So aspects of it became secularized, which is exactly what the Catholic Church tried to do. They tried to Christianize some aspects of it, but they could never get rid of the other aspects of it. So my suggestion, right? First of all, I hear things from people all the time, right? Like one of the argument, they say, you know what? The symbols don't have meaning anymore. Okay, if they don't have meaning anymore, then why are those symbols always there? Why is there always a dark aspect to Halloween? There's evil, witchcraft, pirate. People dress up like pirates. They don't even understand. Like, your pirate is a thief, somebody who's a bandit, right? Why would you want your child dressing up like that? Dressing up like shaitan, right? There's Muslim kids, they dress up like literally like a shaitan with like a, and we don't know what shaitan looks like exactly, right? But whatever they think shaitan looks like, they try and dress up like that. So the symbols have some remnants there. There is symbolism. It has not been completely removed from the thing. So just would it be okay if people said, well, you know what, let's dress up like a priest, let's dress up like a nun, let's dress up like something that we don't believe in at all? You'd say no, there's symbolism. Even if would you say, oh, you can wear a Christian cross around your neck? It's just symbolism. We don't believe that Jesus died on the cross for our sins, but it's just a cool looking thing. You would not do that. The average Muslim would be like, no, I wouldn't do something like that because the symbolism remains, right? So that's one argument that I hear this all the time. Second argument I hear is it just depends on your intention. The Shaykh, it's all about the intention. So you know what? You told me to represent the fiqh council. Okay, coming back to fiqh, right? This idea of your intention is all that matters. It's not the way anything works, right? Your intention as well as what the act represents is what matters. right? In Islam, we don't have this idea of as long as your niyyah is good, it doesn't matter if you're doing something bad. It doesn't matter if you're doing something harmful. Doesn't like Robin Hood, the Robin Hood, the character, as well as maybe Robin Hood, the stock trading app, right? So either way, this idea of like, you don't just go and like steal from the rich and say, I'm distributing it to the poor. I have a good niyyah. Well, stealing is problematic, right? So the act itself needs to be condoned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then your intention needs to be good as well in addition to that. So this idea of, we don't want our kids to feel left out and everything, this is, okay, don't let your kids feel left out. There's other ways to not let them feel left out, right?
Send
First
them
of
on
all,
a youth retreat.
take them on a youth retreat, right? Establish a strong Muslim identity in them. This is really important, So we just we skip all of that, and then we're like, now we didn't do our job the rest of the year. Now we want to like do something about it, right? This common argument, the argument about it's culture. Heard that. I addressed that one already. And then the fourth argument is really, we do it just to be a good neighbor. So we put some decoration, we put some candy out, and we want to do that because we want to connect with our neighbors. And the thing is, this is what about the other 364.75 days of the year? What do you do to be a good neighbor, right? A good neighbor is the one who's sharing food with their neighbors, talking to them, being nice to them. You could be sending Eid gifts and treats and all sorts of stuff. And the reality is, in America, most neighbors, they don't really care that much. If you left and you just happened to, if you went to the masjid, just to, you stayed from Maghrib to Isha in the masjid, with your kids and stuff like that, and you didn't put any decorations or put any candy outside your door, people might think, they're probably like at a Halloween party or something like that. They won't even guess. It won't bother them because many people go out anyways. Many people are not even there. Many people are out of town. So
Actually, there are people, Sheikh, there are people who give their neighbors halwa on Eid. Right? And their neighbors love them more than anything else.
Absolutely.
I even know someone, actually, who invited his neighbors to a mansaf.
MashaAllah.
And they fell in love with him ever since.
MashaAllah.
Yeah.
MashaAllah.
These are alternatives. Huh?
And they probably thought the thobe
They don't
was
have
a,
to, but,
they thought the thobe was a costume.
Ghuraiba, yeah, baraz, we have so many alternatives. Yeah.
Was it pumpkin halwa?
It could be pumpkin halwa, no problem.
Alhamdulillah. Anytime. Exactly.
So last question, Sheikh. Alternatives. Halloween. What's your take on it? I don't like alternative realities. I don't like alternative imitation.
Alternative lifestyles. And all that stuff,
alternative facts. But what is your take on Halloween?
My take is there's two groups of Muslims, right? And I think the ideal is to simply opt out. If you have a strong Islamic-based identity throughout the year, your children, yourself, you're attending halaqas, you're attending Islamic programs, you're not embarrassed to pray in public, you have that strong Islamic identity, there is nothing wrong with opting out and saying we're simply just not going to participate in this festival because it's antithetical to Islamic beliefs. It doesn't really contribute anything, and I'm not trying to no one's going to really bother me for it, and it's not an issue. So we're not the only ones opting out. There are many conservative Christians. There are few conservative Jews, Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses. Completely opt out. They say for them, they say this is shirk, and they're not even as sensitive to shirk as we are, right? And they're like, this is a type of shirk. This is bid'ah, this is shirk, this is wrong. And they opt out. So first of all, we're not the only ones, right? Then there are people who are non-religious who opt out. They say we are against the materialism and the capitalism in this society and all of that. So they're not down with that at all. So we're not alone if we opt out. And we actually really don't have that much to lose. And I think it establishes a strong, independent identity for us. We don't need to mix and assimilate into the melting pot of America. We should be nice to everyone. But assimilation is different than integration. We should integrate, but we should not assimilate. So I think that's ideal, but not everyone's in that position. And I understand that, and there's nothing wrong with not being, that some people just don't have the ability to do that. So there should be some alternatives. I believe that the alternatives, that if you set up a costume day, if a Muslim community set up a costume day once or twice or three times a year or whatever it may be, people would be like, yeah, we already did the costume day. We don't need to dress up as costumes. You know, we could do any nice halal costume.
We have.
What's that?
Don't we do that on Eid?
That's a
We always
traditional
have
costume.
people wearing the whole like uniform. They wear. We dress in a way that we don't dress throughout the whole year, right?
Right, right. No, I can imagine that, like, you know, these Ertugrul fans and stuff, they would love to have a costume day, man. You know, they would love to dress up like, you know, some figure in the past, or, you know, Salah ad-Din, or, you know, some just any type of something with Islamic element, or even not necessarily Islamic element, but nothing that's like against the principles or teachings of Islam. Having a costume day is perfectly fine. Having a candy day, all right, perfectly fine. Do it separately. Having a fruit decorating day, or mixing all three of them together, or having one on separate days or whatever it is. If we do all of these things to have some fun for our children, or even for the adults who really like that stuff, I think that's going to be more than enough of an alternative. We don't want to get into excessive consumerism and, you know, always trying to compete with the consumerism of these days. But having healthy halal alternatives is important for many people, because Muslims are allowed to enjoy. You know, people sometimes Eid is really not that fun. You know, I mean, I grew up. Eid was really not that fun as a child. Depending on what your parents do, they take you to different houses and stuff, and many children they're not enjoying themselves. We're supposed
Come
to.
to Memphis. We make it very fun here.
I'm there, man. Inshallah, inshallah, that's my goal. I'll fly out. Alhamdulillah. So that's my view on these things, right? And also, just forget the Islamic side. Psychologically, when we normalize horror and like gruesome scenes and jokes, and haunted houses have like torture, bloody, possessed people and all that stuff, you normalize that. It's a problem for psychology, and also it displays reverence for evil things, for magic, for sorcery, for witchcraft, and all that. You're not supposed to show. You're supposed to show abhorrence to that. We need to instill that in the minds of Muslims. It's very important we do that. So this is my psychological take on it as well.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh Mustafa. It has been a pleasure. I really appreciate the extra 10 minutes that you gave us. I hereby propose, inshallah ta'ala, that here in at the Memphis Islamic Center, we start a tradition, not necessarily on this particular weekend, but any time of the year, where people basically come and compete in presenting the community with their best barbecue, right? And their own barbecue sauce mix, you know? So I think we just should do a competition. I know that we have a sister community in Texas right now. Tonight they're actually having a chai and tea competition where community members bring their best tea, and everybody is just tasting everyone else's tea. Beautiful activity. Great alternative. Jazakallah khair, Sheikh Mustafa. It has been a pleasure. It's great to see your beautiful son. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you. Jazakumullah khairan for participating, everyone here. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.